when it comes to buying a home, first off, the thing I really want to iterate, honestly, is just the fact that I think that as people from Las Vegas, we have a very unique thing in our city that a lot of other places just don't. It was quite interesting. Actually, I had just gone to a real estate convention over in the Mandalay Bay. And there was this one speaker, his name is Panetta. If you don't know who that is, don't worry, I just found out like a month ago. But he had a really interesting story. So he actually was an agent back in 2012, a little bit after the disaster that was 2008. Now, he was searching for a home for this one guy, and he ended up finding this home that was $90,000. And I thought to myself, that is amazing, $90K for a home, if only. And what was crazy about it too was that it was actually a brand new house. It was built in 2008, but it had been sitting on the lot the entire time. So it wasn't anything that was really being purchased on. So if you put an offer for honestly 20K less for 70K, they probably would have got it. But the person who wanted to buy it said it's still too much for me. Which I remember sitting down on that seat just thinking to myself, what the f? And so that was insane to me. And so we fast forwarded to about 2018 when the average home prices for a single family residential, that's an actual house, it is $265,000. So of course that gone up as things do. Then we fast forward another few years, about 4 years, and in 2022 it is now for a single family residential, the median house price being $450,000. So I'm mentioning this fact because I think as Las Vegas, we are an ever-growing city that's constantly going to be improving. There's new casinos being built, a lot of Californians moving in here, and it's something that's going to be constantly growing. So this is just a city that regardless of what happens through a pandemic, the market, whatever, it honestly is always growing. So this is something to keep in mind, especially because right now, since we're all kind of young in here, condos and townhouse units typically are the ones we look for, and right now they're about $265,000, what single-family residentials were 4 years ago. So it's something to keep in mind. I think it's super important to think about it because, of course, I want you to buy when you guys are ready. And when you guys are ready, forget everything else. When you're ready, you're ready. But it's just something to keep in mind because I think that we should take advantage of that being from Las Vegas. Or even if you're moved from a different place like California, at least we can adapt and grow with the city. So honestly, when it comes to the buying process, to actually understand how to actually buy it, the things we're going to look at is the credit score, getting pre-approved, things to keep in mind, finding a right home for you, putting an offer, what the title company is, and just the escrow process. So I'm going to have him take over as far as the credit score goes, getting pre-approved, and things to keep in mind.
Okay, credit score. So you're going to hear a lot of different things on social media from different loan officers, from different realtors. The truth is you only need a minimum of 500 credit score. Now, as Angel's friend, I would never recommend for you guys to buy with a 500 credit score. My job is to help you get at least to a 620 so that you get a decent rate, decent purchase price, and good pricing all around. So forget what you hear everywhere else. Focus. What I'm trying to say about that is first come to me so that we can educate you properly. Okay, because there's a lot of baloney out there, essentially, okay? Now, as far as credit score, we're not only looking for a score, okay? A very important part of credit is debt. So we're going to take a look at your fancy new car that you pay $650 on. We're going to take a look at your credit cards. We're going to take a look at all the loans you've taken out. And based on that, we're going to take it into your income, and that's what we come up with what's known as a debt-to-income ratio. A debt-to-income ratio is what determines how much house you can afford. Okay? So getting for approved. As far as a financial plan, so I don't neither deny you or approve you. So if I had $1 for every person that comes in ready to buy into my office, I'd be pretty much broke. My job is to come up with a plan for you. If you guys are ready in 2025, it's my job to tell you how to get there. Whether it's paying off a car, whether it's paying down debt, whether it's improving your credit score, I take care of that so that I can hand you off to Angel. And then he takes care of all the fun stuff. Oh, these are big ones. Things to keep in mind. Do not make any huge purchases during the transaction. If I come up with a plan for you, that brand new Mercedes, I promise you, is not in the plan. Going on that fancy vacation is not in the plan. So what I ask from you is to sacrifice a little so that you can reap the reward of a home. And Angel mentioned the possibility of getting into condos and townhouses, and I'll throw my story out there. I had a kid in 2020. I was living with my dad. I needed a place to be, a place to live. I got pre-approved for $250, and as you guys could imagine, that's a home the size of a shoebox. Is that my dream home? Hell no. No way. But now because I bought that home for $250, now we're looking at that home being worth $430. Now I have the luxury of selling and getting that $500,000 home that I think I deserve, that I wanted from the beginning. So put yourself in the same shoes. Just because you buy today what you're not in love with doesn't mean that you're not going to get what you love in the future. So that's probably the point that I want to drive today.
100%. So yeah, once it gets pre-approved, and as you mentioned, like, yeah, this is probably going to be the home that you're going to be in temporarily. And most people, especially here in Vegas, they move every 5 years. So just honestly keep that in mind because things do change and you do adapt. As we start to go through our lives and get different careers, what your position in life is going to be totally different than what it was 5 years ago. I'm pretty sure you can imagine 5 years ago for you guys especially, it's like totally different lifestyles right now. So things change, and so as you start to move and adapt, things will get better. But of course, it's not going to be the end-all be-all home. This is just a home for right now. So once you get pre-approved, I can actually start to see what you can actually afford versus what you actually want. Because what Joe wants may not be what Jared wants. Actually, that might be a lie because you both like cars. But the thing I want to make sure clean is that like everyone's kind of different, and so we all want different things in our home. Some people want better kitchen, some people want a better bathroom, some people want more square footage. Some people want a huge backyard, some people don't care. Like me, I don't care about a backyard, but that's me. So we have to match those two together, and honestly, this is probably the most fun part of the whole transaction is honestly looking for a home. Some people might think like, oh, I was like driving around looking for, no, this is fun. I honestly genuinely love doing this, and even somebody that Jeffrey referred to me, his friend Kyle, that guy, I had a blast looking for homes for him. So then once we actually look for a home, we find one that you actually want to get into, we can then put in an offer. So the offer is honestly a whole cluster of things. So when it comes to the offer, it's not just, okay, this house is $450, let me put in an offer for $440 or $460. It's not just the price itself, there's other factors that go into this. No, of course, the offer price, that is a big thing, and that's where a lot of sellers will look at, but it's not the end-all be-all because we have other things to keep in mind. Now the first thing is the payments, like earnest money, down payment, and closing costs. Now the earnest money, the best way that I can describe it is think of it like you're about to buy something expensive, and some people might think, this person may not be serious, this person may be just kind of clowning me. The earnest money is just to show that here's a little bit of money so I can show you that I'm being serious, that this is actually a home that I'm really invested in. So when we go into the escrow process that I'll explain in a bit, this is something you can show that I'm serious and I actually really want your home. Now that honestly can change, we can negotiate how much that is, but it's something to keep in mind. Of course we have the down payment, which is going to be just about 3% honestly for conventional loans, or if you have FHA, it'll be 3.5, depending on how much you want to put down. The more you put down, honestly, it doesn't make a huge difference in the monthly payments, but still something to keep in mind. Then we have the closing costs too. The closing cost is also something we can negotiate. There are things that traditionally are paid by the seller and things traditionally paid by the buyer. Now that's going to be all negotiable, and depending on the market, sometimes we can get away with the buyer paying for less. We can even ask the seller to pay for closing costs. We can even ask the seller help you get money to lower your interest rate and get a buy down. Now, of course, we're going to talk about in the future, but that's just something to also keep in mind. The next is also time frame, inspections, and contingencies. What this means is, think of it like once we actually get the home and we're under escrow, we have to start thinking about inspections for the home. Because of course, especially for sellers, they're not all like tied into the home, making sure everything is perfect for the next person to buy it. They could be whatever about whatever. And when you start to look at some place, you can only see at the eyes level, but we don't know about the foundation, we don't know about the roof, we don't know about a lot of things. So that's why an inspection is typically very important. So you want to have enough time to do that, and that's going to be part of the offer. How much time are we going to give you so that you can go ahead and get that inspection? Now you have other things as far as like an appraisal contingency. What an appraisal is, and I get too in detail about this, is think of it like this. If the home is worth $400K, the person's selling your $400K, right? But then the banks come in and they look at it and they're saying, okay, well, this house realistically is only really worth $380K. Well, we're not going to give you a $400K loan because it's only really worth $380. So that's an appraisal that's going to be a part of this. Now, sometimes you can say, well, I don't care, I'll just pay the difference. They're okay with that. Sometimes it goes a little higher, but the goal is to be exactly where it is. Whereas they're selling at $380 and appraised at $380. So those are all little contingencies, and as I don't want to get too deep into it, but like I just want you to understand there are other parts of it. And additional terms as far as like personal property goes, you see the chandelier, it's like I really want the chandelier, so I want to put it part of the offer, like I want it as in addition to the house. And so you can put that I want the chandelier, and they'll probably give it to you. If they're still showing the property with the chandelier in the house. So those are just a few things to keep in mind when it comes to the offer. And then once we get the offer accepted, we then go into opening escrow. Now, escrow process is going to be about 30 days depending on how smoothly things go. Sometimes in an ideal world, it will be even shorter than that. But that's just sort of the time frame. But there's the escrow company and there's also the title company. Now, the title company is going to be, next slide. These are the people that are making sure that the seller actually owns the place and they have the right to sell you that place. Because of course, so like let's say we have grandma. She has 5 different kids and one of them lives in New Jersey, one lives in New York, one lives in Florida, and unfortunately grandma gets run over by a reindeer. And she does not have somebody in the will that says this person will get the property. So sometimes it can be a little bit messy when it comes to that. It typically isn't, but that's what the title company is for, to make sure that this person actually has the right to give you and sell you this house. And now we get on to the actual escrow process. So again, the average time frame about this is going to be about 30 days. This is honestly the home run part of it. This is the part where everything starts coming into play. Now we have earnest money, as I mentioned before. That's just to give them some money to say that I'm very serious about this home. I want it, so let's get started on it. Now we have disclosure forms. This is going to be around the time when I start to give you some disclosure forms as far as like, you probably should get a home inspection. Another one is as far as the seller's resale package. What they know and can disclose about the home, what's about it, and basically give you a rundown of it. Another thing is like just additional terms, like terms and vocabulary words that honestly, unless you're a part of this space, it can seem a little bit confusing and you may not know what everything means. So those are just some disclosure forms I'll give you so that we can be all on the same page when it comes to this. Then we have the title report. Of course, that's what I was talking about, the title company, making sure everything is good, and then the appraisal. So, I don't know if I explained that good enough, but yeah, appraisal, again, house, I'm selling it for $400,000. The banks need to make sure that this house is actually worth $400,000. And now we have the home inspections, which is again your right to say, I want an inspection. Inspector goes in there and they give you a report to tell you, okay, this is what's wrong with it and this is what you can fix. And you definitely have the right to say, I want you to fix this stuff. You also have the right to actually ask for a credit, so that way they can give you some money towards the closing costs, so that way you can start paying for the repairs that they need. Now, this list is going to be a little bit long, and not everything in this is actually really important. So that's just something to keep in mind. So when you get that inspection report, don't like nitpick every little thing. It's just something that you want to keep in mind, especially when it comes to big things like roofing. Now, I know I've been talking a lot, so is there any real questions that you have so far about this? As far as
for the inspection, right? So you said you have the option to pay to, like, say if the home had issues. You kept talking about roofing. Like, what would be like the main issue about roofing?
honestly, it's mostly just like a leak. Like in my condo, I had a leak in my roof. Now that is something that wasn't super important to me because it's something that can be fixed later on. And when you have like condos that have HOAs, you can typically call the HOA and let them know that we need to get this fixed. So that's honestly the biggest one. It's just that you would have to hire somebody to actually come in and like go in to fix the roof. But something that's like a roofing issue is a lot different than like some cosmetic issues, like there's a little bit of chipping in the paint. So that's kind of why I emphasize that. But there's other factors that, as real estate agents, it's more so I want to keep you in, I want you to know that you can get this and you can fix it and you can ask the seller to fix it or get credit for it. But that's honestly just up to you on what's your priority as far as what should or needs to be fixed in the home. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so say you do get credit for it, is it and then your responsibility to fix the problem yourself, or?
Yeah, so then they'll give you some money so that you can go ahead and fix it after the transaction.
You know me, I'm just do stuff like a person.
That's what I, honestly. Yeah, most of the time to keep this as smooth as possible, I would recommend, you don't have to do, don't listen to what I have to say, I just would recommend that you just ask for a credit. Because honestly, it's a lot easier, and we can just get you in the home so that way, especially because during this time, you're going to be like wanting to get in that home immediately. So I want you to, I really want this to be as smooth as possible and quick as possible, so that way we can just get you in there, and you can start doing all the knickknacks with it. Like when I first got my condo, we painted the entire thing. And that was a blast doing that. So yeah, that's fine. So then, like as I mentioned, we have the request for repairs. You can either have the seller fix it, you ask for credit, whatever may have you. Now, during this process as well, I did not put in here, but we're also going to be having what he's going to be doing, like loan estimates as far as like making sure everything is good. He's probably going to ask you for some other paperwork that maybe some W-2s or the latest pay stub, whatever it may be, or some other things. So briefly mention that.
So I could take over that. So I play two jobs in this whole role. My job is to tell you how much you guys qualify for, make sure that you've been at your job the right amount of time, all that good stuff, everything you hear about. Now, I actually start working when you get into contracts. Because now it's my job to triple check and quadruple check everything that you guys told me is true. Make sure that you guys are working your 40 hours, make sure that you didn't, nowadays, Photoshop based stuff. Make sure that everything looks good, and then from there, we take the seller's property, add taxes, fees, and everything, and I'll tell you what your payment's gonna look like. Once you get into contract with them, within 5 hours, I'll let you know, it's like, hey, here's your payment, here's your closing cost, here's your down payment, here's how everything's gonna be looking. Here's how this deal's gonna look with this interest rate, this program, this thing, and then it's up to you guys to decide what best suits you.
Exactly.
Okay. Also, I do want to throw something else on top of the inspections that we didn't talk about, just because you were asking. On the government loan, which is most traditional loans, they don't allow you to do a loan if certain things are broken. So if your roof has a big hole in it, you can't do a loan on it. If the floor's missing, you can't do a loan on it. So there's certain things that the seller would have to take care of for you to purchase this home. So just like to go on top of that.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that. I totally forgot about that. But yeah, so just something to keep in mind. And then one thing I want to touch on that he said was that, yeah, like you need to stay in the job and make sure you're working the 40 hours. I can't tell you how anxious I was to leave the job at Caesar's Palace that we were at. I really wanted to do a job immediately because I wanted to get into real estate, I wanted to get this going. But you really need to hold that job so that way at the very end, everything can go smoothly. Because see, the banks, they're giving you a good amount of money. Like, when you really think about it, like $200K is a lot of money. I can't even give $5 to somebody without feeling some type of way. And so it's just like something that they are just making sure that you for sure can get this loan. You're working 40 hours, you're keeping your job, you're not changing your credit score. So that way they can see you are reliable and consistent. Because if they see that you are a waiter for 30 days, then you decide to become like a construction worker, then you are a mechanic, they're seeing you bounce around so many times that they're like, dude, I don't even know what this next move is. Which is good, you shouldn't like put on your next move. But it's still something that the banks want to keep in mind as far as financial security goes, which is a great thing because then you don't have problems like the weird stuff in the past, like 2008. Back then, they gave houses to anybody. If you made $5 a day, they gave you a home. They want to make sure that that never happens again, so this is a good thing. They're not your enemy. They're the people that are on your side, making sure that you are doing everything correct. So when you get onto the final approval, the lender finally, we waive all the contingencies. We waive, like, making sure that the title and everything is good to go, inspections all good to go, appraisal is good to go, everything is cool. So then at the very end, right before we start closing, we start signing all the contracts and making sure everything is good to go, and you now have the keys to the home. We have the final walkthrough. Now, the final walkthrough is super important because even though in Vegas is not such a big thing, but things happen. I've heard stories of where people go in without the final walkthrough, they purchase the home, sign it, they say this is now mine, and then they realize that the house caught on fire. And now whose problem is that? Well, that's the person who just bought the home, and now they're stuck with it. Now, of course, that's a crazy thing that most of the time doesn't happen, but it's still something to keep in mind, and that's why the final walkthrough is important. So you're basically right, like honestly the day before, even the day of in the morning, we'll go ahead and go to the property, make sure that everything is intact and everything is good to go. If let's say the loan requires you to have good roofing, we gotta go and make sure that the roof is actually fixed, you are able to get the home, and everything is good to go. So that's why that final walkthrough is so important and why I urge it so much. And then we finally go on to the closing, which is honestly, it's a lot of paperwork. But it's a lot of paperwork because it's all the things, making sure that this is now your home, and we can finally sign off and give you the keys to it, and take all the pictures to say that I just got a freaking home. Which is honestly the most gratifying thing that I've been able to experience, and I cannot wait for each of you to experience that. Yeah. So in a nutshell, that honestly is what it takes to buy a home. Now, of course, there are like little knickknacks that goes into it here and there, but that honestly goes on a case by case. This is honestly just a skeleton of just this is how it traditionally goes. This is how it went for me, and if there's anything else, then I will explain it to you as the agent and make sure that you understand everything that